Hello and welcome to another Paper Classroom 5-minute video. Today we're going to talk about the MG cylinder. MG of course standing for machine glazed. This is a typical MG cylinder. They weigh somewhere from 100 to 180 tonnes. They're cast in one go, and once they are cast they must never ever be allowed to stop turning, because if they do they will deform under their own weight. So we do have a thing called Sunday drive about this. So some general info about MG cylinders. Typically weigh between 100 up to 180 metric tonnes. They're double cambered, and what we mean by double cambered is there's a curvature across the bulk of the cylinder itself, but where that surface is fastened to the ends, then the expansion of the metal is more restricted, so there's a separate type of curvature towards the edge of the MG cylinder. So MG cylinders are all double cambered, not single cambered like most paper making rolls are. You've got to heat them and cool them very slowly. You've got to let the heat penetrate into or escape out of everywhere very slowly, very evenly, because if you don't, you'll distort that cylinder, and if that happens there's nothing else to do but to throw it away and buy a new one. And as I mentioned in the beginning, you must never ever let this cylinder stop. It will deform under its own weight, even if it only turns once or twice a day. And you know, the phrase we use for this is we're putting it in Sunday drive, so it just slowly turns so that it doesn't have the opportunity to deform. Now then, I have for you what I call my brown envelope challenge, and this is something I give to all my classes in face-to-face lectures. What I want you to do is to stop this video, take 5 minutes out and list the characteristics of a brown envelope, as many as you can think of. Okay, welcome back. Have you done that? Have you made that list? Okay, well if you have, these are some of the things that my face-to-face students come up with regularly. I ask them to describe a brown envelope and they say it's brown. They say it's rectangular. They say it has a flap. Sometimes they'll say a sticky flap. Sometimes they'll say a lickable flap. Sometimes they'll say a self-adhesive flap. And they'll often say that it has a window, because many brown envelopes do have windows. None of these are the answers that I was looking for. If you got some other ones, maybe you're on a winner. If you've only got these, try and think of some more. And I was after two things, and these are the two things that I was after. Number one, it's smooth and glossy on the outside. So if you take a brown envelope and you look at it critically, you'll find the outside is fairly smooth, and if you hold it up to the light, you'll see it's got a bit of a shine to it, a bit of a gloss. And that's because that side of the paper went over the MG cylinder. That side of the paper was in contact with the hot metal surface. Now in cellulose, particularly when cellulose is wet, when it gets hot and wet, then it becomes very plastic, very deformable. And when it deforms, it will take the shape of whatever it is in contact with. So if the outside surface of this envelope is in contact with a super smooth, bright and shiny metal surface, then this side will deform and become equally smooth and equally shiny. Hence, the outside is shiny. But if you look on the inside of the envelope, a completely different surface, a completely different texture. There's no gloss to that whatsoever. And if you feel it, it's rough. It's nowhere near as smooth as the outside. And that's because when the paper is held on the surface of the MG cylinder, it's pressed onto it with a rough felt. And as I said a moment or two ago, as the heat makes the cellulose become plastic and deformable. The surface in contact with the metal will deform and take on the nature of that surface. But the surface that's in contact with the dryer fabric, the felt, will take on the nature of that dryer fabric. And if you've got a fairly rough, hairy dryer fabric, then that surface will become the same. It will become rough and it won't become glossy, it will become very dull. So that's my brown envelope challenge. I wonder how many of you pass that. So, rough and dull on the inside. So a summary of what we've talked about in this session. MG cylinders typically weigh up to about 180 tonnes. They're double cambered. As you've just seen from the brown envelope challenge, they produce a two-sided sheet. One side is smooth and glossy, the other side is rough and dull. And finally, you can't stop them. They must operate in at least Sunday drive so that they do not deform under their own weight. Okay, well, thank you again for listening to this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and please feel free to follow Paper Classroom on any of these social media.